Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to break down one of the most influential and honestly one of the most controversial works of political philosophy ever written, Thomas Hobbes's Leviathan. And this really gets to the core of it all, doesn't it? This is the provocative question at the very heart of Hobbes' argument. He believed the answer held the key to civilization itself. Okay, so let's dive in. To understand Hobbes's big picture, we have to start where he does, with the individual. And for Hobbes, a human being is basically a kind of complex biological machine. See, for Hobbes, the mind wasn't some mystical soul. It was mechanical. It all starts with sensation, the outside world literally pushing on our senses. That impression then starts to fade, which he calls imagination. Let that image decay even more over time, and poof, you've got memory. And finally, when you string those fading images together, pointed towards something you want or fear, well, that's thought. It's all just a physical chain reaction. So what makes this human machine go? Hobbes calls them passions. These are the fundamental internal forces, the little engines of attraction and repulsion that guide our every single move. You're either moving towards something you want, that's an appetite, or you're moving away from something you don't, that's an aversion. It really is that simple. And here's the kicker. Hobbes believed that all our different appetites and aversions could be boiled down to one single, relentless pursuit: the desire for power. You want wealth, knowledge, respect? According to Hobbes, those are just different ways of getting more power, which is really just the ability to get whatever you want in the future. Okay, so we've got these individual power-seeking machines. Now, what happens when you put a bunch of them together in a room with no rules? Well, as we'll see in this next section, you get a terrifying problem. Hobbes presents us with this incredibly stark choice. On one side, you have the state of nature, and on the other, civil society. And the difference is, quite literally, life and death. In the state of nature, everybody has a right to everything, which sounds good, but it means a constant state of war and fear. In civil society, you get laws, justice, and most importantly, you get protection. Now, this is a really fascinating point. For Hobbes, ideas we take for granted, like justice or property, simply can't exist without a power strong enough to enforce them. Think about it. If there's no government to stop me, there's nothing technically unjust about me taking your stuff. The very idea of yours and mine hasn't even been invented yet. So, faced with this absolutely brutal reality, this nightmare scenario, Hobbes argues that our own human reason offers us an escape route. The way out starts when people willingly agree to give up their absolute right to everything, on one condition: that everybody else does the same. You're not really giving someone else a new right. You're just stepping out of their way so they can enjoy the rights they already have. And this mutual agreement, this big trade-off of rights, this is the social contract. It is the very foundation of society and government. It's a massive collective deal. I'll give up my right to attack you if you give up your right to attack me. But, and this is a huge but, Hobbes is crystal clear on this one point. No contract can ever force you to harm yourself. Why? Because self-preservation is the entire reason you made the contract in the first place. Giving up your right to self-defense would completely defeat the purpose. Okay, but this brings up a huge problem, right? A contract is just words on a page. What good are promises if there's no one around with a sword to enforce them? Without an enforcer, we're right back where we started, in that state of nature where everyone's afraid the other guy's going to break his promise first. And this brings us to Hobbes's powerful and deeply controversial solution: the creation of an absolute, all-powerful sovereign. So, to enforce the contract, everyone agrees to transfer their collective rights and power to a single entity. In doing so, they create what Hobbes calls a commonwealth, or an artificial man. This is the Leviathan. It becomes the soul of the whole society, giving it life and motion. Now, for this to actually work, the sovereign, whether it's one king or a group of people, has to hold certain absolute, non-negotiable rights. It has to be the ultimate judge in all fights. It has to have the sole power to make laws and control the army. It even gets to decide what ideas and doctrines are allowed to be taught. For Hobbes, these aren't optional extras. They're essential to stop society from falling apart. And this quote just brilliantly illustrates his core belief. You cannot divide these powers. The moment you start splitting power, say between a king and a parliament, you're just creating a recipe for civil war and a return to total chaos. Remember, Hobbes lived through the English Civil War. For him, this wasn't a theory. It was a painful, bloody reality. So the deal, when you boil it down, is simple. You obey, and the sovereign protects you. But what if that protection fails? Well, if the sovereign can no longer keep you safe, the contract is broken. At that moment, your obligation to obey just evaporates, because the whole reason for the deal has disappeared. And so we end up right back where we started. Hobbes presents us with this stark, pretty uncomfortable choice. You can have absolute freedom in total chaos, or you can have absolute security under an all-powerful ruler. It's a powerful argument for security for sure, but the price is submission. So what do you think? What did he get right, and what might he have missed?